Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that years of your life have quietly slipped by while you were barely present inside them. You wake up, go to work, answer messages, eat meals, talk to people, complete responsibilities, and everything on the surface looks stable and normal. Yet somewhere deep inside, there is a strange emptiness you cannot explain. Your days move on, autopilot. One routine, blending into the next, until life begins to feel less like something you are living and more like something that is simply happening around you. Then one day you look into the mirror and something feels unfamiliar. The eyes staring back look tired. The shoulders feel heavy. And a quiet question rises in the back of your mind. Where did the real me go? Many people do not collapse because of one dramatic event. They slowly disappear into noise, distraction, pressure, and silent exhaustion. But the ancient Stoics believed that when a life begins to drift apart, the way back does not start with changing the world outside you. It begins by rebuilding what is within you, the mind, the body, and the heart. And there are 3 brutal Stoic rules that can rebuild them from the inside out, if you are willing to live by them. Rule 1 begins with a realization that many people never stop long enough to see. Your mind is no longer fully yours. It feels like it is, because the thoughts sound like your own voice and the reactions feel automatic. But if you observe closely, you begin to notice how much of your mental life is being shaped by forces outside you. Every day, your attention is pulled in dozens of directions. News feeds demand your outrage. Social media invites comparison. Endless notifications compete for your focus. And the opinions of strangers quietly seep into the way you judge yourself and your life. Without realizing it, your mind becomes crowded with noise. The Stoics understood something that modern life makes easy to forget. The greatest form of slavery is not physical chains, but a mind that is no longer under its own command. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men who ever lived, wrote a reminder to himself that still echoes across centuries. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Those words reveal a truth that most people overlook. Strength does not come from controlling the world around you. It comes from controlling the way your mind responds to that world. Yet today, many people surrender that control without even noticing. They scroll through endless content before their day even begins. They absorb anxiety, anger, and comparison before they have taken a single conscious breath. By the time the morning is over, their mental state has already been shaped by algorithms, opinion, and distractions. Your mind slowly becomes a battlefield. And the most dangerous part is that you did not even notice when the invasion began. If you want to rebuild your life the Stoic way, the first step is to reclaim the territory of your own mind. This begins with something deceptively simple but incredibly powerful. You must become aware of what you allow into your thoughts. Just as a strong body cannot thrive on constant junk food, a strong mind cannot thrive on constant mental garbage. Every piece of information you consume becomes material your mind must process. Every dramatic headline, every comparison, every negative conversation leaves a trace. Over time, those traces shape how you see the world and how you see yourself. The Stoics believed that discipline begins with attention. What you repeatedly give your attention to will eventually shape your character. This is why reclaiming the mind starts with a deliberate shift in what you feed it. Especially during the earliest moments of the day, the first 30 minutes after you wake up are not just another part of the morning. They are the moment when your mind is most impressionable. Whatever enters your thoughts during that time sets the emotional tone for everything that follows. If the first thing you absorb is chaos, your mind begins the day in chaos. If the first thing you absorb is clarity, your mind begins the day with clarity. Imagine starting each morning not with noise, but with training. Instead of scrolling through distraction, you expose your mind to ideas that strengthen it, philosophy that sharpens your perspective, stories of people who endured difficulty and still stood firm, knowledge that expands your ability to think clearly and act with intention. In this way, reading is no longer a passive habit. It becomes a form of mental training. Each page strengthens your ability to think independently rather than react automatically. Over time, this simple practice begins to change something deeper. You stop feeling like a passenger in your own mind and start becoming its commander. But awareness alone is not enough. Once you begin to reclaim your attention, you must also confront the direction your life is moving. Many people spend years chasing vague goals that never truly satisfy them. They say they want happiness, success, recognition, or comfort. But these are outcomes, not identities. The Stoics believed that the real question is not what you want to have, but who you want to become. When your focus is only on results, your motivation fades whenever progress slows. When your focus is on identity, your actions begin to align naturally with the person you choose to be. A person who says, "I want to get in shape," may struggle with discipline. A person who says, "I am someone who respects and strengthens my body," will begin making choices that support that identity. This shift may seem small, but it changes the entire structure of motivation. You are no longer chasing a distant outcome. You are practicing a way of being in the present moment. The Stoics understood that character is built not through dramatic transformations, but through repeated decisions made day after day. Every thought you accept strengthens a version of yourself. Every thought you reject weakens it. This is why mastering the mind is the foundation of every other change you hope to make. If your thoughts remain scattered, your actions will remain scattered. If your thoughts become disciplined, your life will begin to move with purpose. The moment you realize that your mind has been quietly shaped by the world around you is the moment your real power begins. Because from that moment forward, you have a choice. You can continue letting noise command your attention, or you can begin the quiet but relentless work of reclaiming your own mind. And once you do, you will discover something the Stoics understood long ago. A person who governs their own mind is far more powerful than someone who tries to control the world. Once you begin to realize how much of your mind has been shaped by outside noise, the next step becomes clear. You must begin a process of mental cleansing. Just as the body needs clean food to regain strength, the mind needs clean input to regain clarity. Many people try to rebuild their lives while still feeding their thoughts with the same distractions, comparison, and fears that weakened them in the first place. They hope for transformation while repeating the same mental habits every day. But the Stoics believed that renewal always begins with discipline over what enters the mind. You cannot build a strong inner life while constantly consuming ideas that scatter your attention and weaken your focus. The first practice is simple but powerful. For 7 days, protect the first 30 minutes of your morning as if it was sacred ground. During that time, you do not open social media. You do not check endless messages. And you do not invite the noise of the world into your mind. Instead, you feed your thoughts with something that strengthens your character. Read philosophy that challenges the way you think. Study the lives of people who endured hardship and still remained steady. Learn ideas that sharpen your judgment and calm your emotions. The purpose is not entertainment. The purpose is training. Your mind is either becoming stronger or weaker, depending on what you repeatedly allow into it. Every sentence you read shapes the way you interpret the world around you. Every idea you absorb becomes part of the framework through which you make decisions. When you begin your day with intentional learning instead of endless distraction, something subtle begins to change. Your mind becomes quieter. Your reactions become slower and more deliberate. The day no longer begins with chaos. It begins with direction. But cleansing the mind is only the first step. Once the noise begins to fade, you will notice another deeper question rising to the surface. Where exactly am I going with my life? Most people move through the years chasing vague outcomes. They say they want to be happy, successful, respected, or comfortable. Yet those goals rarely bring lasting satisfaction. The Stoics understood that happiness is not something you chase directly. It is something that appears naturally when your actions align with your character. This is why they focus not on what a person wants to achieve, but on what kind of person they are becoming. There is a powerful difference between outcome thinking and identity thinking. When someone says, "I want to lose weight," they focus on a result that exists somewhere in the future. When someone says, "I am a person who respects and strengthens my body," the focus shifts to the way they live today. Identity shapes behavior more powerfully than motivation ever can. A person who sees themselves as disciplined will naturally make disciplined choices. A person who sees themselves as weak will unconsciously repeat the habits that reinforce that belief. The Stoics knew that every human life is built through repeated choices that slowly carve a deeper identity. If you want your life to move in a new direction, you must begin by redefining who you believe yourself to be. One simple exercise can begin this transformation. Take a moment to write a sentence that starts with the words, "I am becoming." Do not finish the sentence with a distant dream that belongs to some future version of you. Finish it with the identity you choose to practice today. I am becoming someone who speaks honestly. I am becoming someone who trains my body with discipline. I am becoming someone who faces difficulty with calm and courage. These statements are not fantasies. They are commitments to the person you choose to practice being each day. Every action you take either strengthens that identity or weakens it. When your behavior aligns with the person you are becoming, confidence begins to grow naturally. Not the loud confidence that seeks approval, but the quiet confidence that comes from keeping promises to yourself. This is how transformation truly happens. Not through dramatic bursts of motivation, but through small decisions repeated until they reshape the structure of your character. Over time, you begin to notice that your life feels different. Your attention becomes sharper. Your emotions become steadier. Your decisions become clearer. The chaos that once dominated your thoughts begins to lose its grip. You start to realize that the world has not changed very much, but the way you respond to it has changed completely. That shift is the beginning of inner freedom. The Stoics believed that a person who defines their identity through virtue rather than circumstance cannot easily be shaken by the outside world. When you know who you are becoming, the opinions of others lose much of their power. The distractions that once consumed your attention begin to look trivial. You no longer drift through your days, reacting to whatever appears in front of you. Instead, you move with intention, guided by the identity you have chosen to build. This is the moment when your mind stops being a passive receiver of influence and begins to act as the architect of your life. And once that shift begins, every decision becomes part of a deeper transformation that continues to unfold with every passing day. Even after you begin to cleanse your mind and redefine the person you want to become, there is another obstacle that quietly holds many people back. It is not the world, and it is not circumstance. It is the invisible prison built from the beliefs you have repeated to yourself for years. These beliefs often sound simple, almost harmless, but their influence is enormous. I cannot do that. I am not good enough. It is too late for me. I do not have the time. At first, these thoughts feel like realistic observations, but over time they become walls that shape the limits of your life. The Stoics understood that human beings suffer less from reality and more from the interpretations they agree to accept. Epictetus taught that it is not events themselves that disturb us, but the judgments we attach to them. In other words, the prison is not made of iron bars. It is made of conclusions you have repeated so often that they now feel like truth. The most dangerous part is that these beliefs usually form quietly. A failure in the past becomes a permanent label in your mind. A moment of rejection becomes a story you carry about your worth. A difficult period becomes evidence that the future will never change. Over time, these thoughts stop feeling like opinions and start feeling like facts. Yet when you examine them closely, you realize something powerful. Most of them were never proven. They were simply accepted. The Stoics called this process assent, the act of agreeing with an impression without questioning it. The moment you agree with a limiting thought, you begin to behave as if it were real. Your actions shrink. Your ambition fades. Your courage weakens. Slowly, your life begins to match the narrow expectations created by that belief. But the same principle also reveals the way out. If a belief can imprison you when you accept it, it can also lose its power the moment you refuse to agree with it. Breaking the invisible prison begins with awareness. You must learn to notice the thoughts that appear automatically in moments of challenge. When an opportunity appears and a voice in your mind whispers that you are not ready, pause for a moment. When difficulty arises and a voice insists that you cannot handle it, pause again. Instead of accepting the thought as truth, examine it. Ask yourself whether it is a fact or simply a story your mind has repeated for years. This small pause interrupts the automatic agreement that gives limiting beliefs their power. A practical exercise can make this process clearer. Take a piece of paper and write down 3 beliefs that have been quietly holding you back. Be honest with yourself. They might sound like, I do not have enough talent. I am too old to start again. Or people like me never succeed. Once those beliefs are written down, look at them as if they belong to someone else. Ask whether they are absolute truths or simply interpretations shaped by past experiences. In most cases, you will see that they are not facts at all. They are assumptions that have been repeated until they became familiar. Now, rewrite each belief as a statement of growth and responsibility. I do not have enough time becomes, I am learning to prioritize what truly matters. I am not good enough becomes, I am developing the skills I need through effort and patience. It is too late becomes every moment I am alive is another opportunity to begin again. This process may feel simple, but it has deep psychological power. Every time you rewrite a belief, you weaken the structure of the identity built around it. You stop reinforcing the version of yourself that was shaped by fear and start strengthening a version shaped by intention. The Stoics believed that freedom begins when a person learns to examine their own thoughts rather than blindly obey them. When you challenge a limiting belief, you are not pretending that life will suddenly become easy. You are choosing to remove the artificial boundaries that were never real in the first place. Over time, this practice changes the way you experience challenges. Situations that once felt like proof of your weakness become opportunities to test your growth. Instead of saying, "I cannot handle this," you begin to ask what this moment is teaching you. Instead of retreating from difficulty, you begin to approach it with curiosity and discipline. Slowly, the walls of the invisible prison begin to crack. Each time you refuse to agree with a limiting belief, a small piece of your mental freedom returns. Each new action taken despite doubt expands the territory of your life. The Stoics understood that courage does not mean the absence of fear. It means the refusal to let fear define the limits of who you can become. When you learn to question the beliefs that once controlled your decisions, something remarkable happens. The life that once felt narrow begins to open again. Possibilities you once ignored start to appear, and you begin to see that the greatest barrier you ever faced was not the world outside you, but the quiet voice inside your mind that convinced you to stop trying. The moment you stop agreeing with that voice is the moment the prison door begins to open. Once you begin to discipline your mind and break the invisible beliefs that once held you back, another truth becomes impossible to ignore. Your mind does not exist separately from your body. The condition of your body quietly shapes the strength of your thoughts, your emotions, and your ability to act with purpose. The Stoics understood this long before modern science confirmed it. A tired body weakens resolve. A neglected body clouds judgment. A body ruled by comfort slowly erodes the will that the mind depends on. This is why the second rule is simple but uncompromising. If you want a strong mind, you must build a strong body. Your body is not merely something you carry through life. It is the foundation that supports your character. Every decision you make about how you treat your body becomes a decision about the kind of person you are becoming. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this truth every morning when he struggled to leave the warmth of his bed. He wrote that when it feels difficult to rise, remember that you were born to act as a human being. In other words, life was not given to you for endless comfort. It was given to you to act, to contribute, and to live with strength. The rebuilding of the body begins with awareness of something most people treat casually: what they put into their bodies every day. Food is not just fuel for survival. It is information that tells your body how to function. Yet many people eat without attention, guided by impulse, convenience, or temporary pleasure. Over time, this lack of awareness creates a body that feels heavy, tired, and resistant to effort. The Stoic perspective invites a different approach. Before every meal, pause for a moment and ask a simple question: will this choice move me closer to the person I want to become? Or will it strengthen the habits I am trying to leave behind? This question is not about strict dieting or punishing rules. It is about consciousness. Each time you choose nourishment that supports your health, you reinforce the connection between discipline and self-respect. Slowly, the act of eating becomes less about satisfying cravings and more about honoring the life you have been given. Alongside nutrition, there is another pillar that quietly determines the strength of both mind and body: sleep. Many people treat sleep as an inconvenience, something to sacrifice in exchange for more entertainment or distraction. Yet this trade always comes at a hidden cost. A tired mind struggles to think clearly. Emotions become unstable. Small frustrations begin to feel overwhelming. Seneca once wrote that it is not that life is short, but that we waste much of it. Each late night spent scrolling or escaping into endless distraction steals energy from the following day. Rest is not laziness. It is restoration. When you give your body proper sleep, you sharpen your mind, steady your emotions, and strengthen your ability to face challenges with calm, focus. Protecting your rest is not weakness. It is an act of discipline that prepares you for the responsibilities of the next day. But perhaps the most visible expression of physical discipline is movement. The human body was not designed for constant stillness. When movement disappears from daily life, something deeper begins to stagnate. Energy slows. Emotions become trapped. The mind becomes restless. The Stoics understood that action has the power to reset both body and spirit. When anxiety rises, walk until your breathing settles. When anger builds, run until the tension begins to release. When confusion clouds your mind, lift something heavy and feel your strength return. Movement reconnects you with a simple truth. You are not helpless. You are capable of effort. Even small acts of movement send a powerful signal to your mind. They remind you that you still have the power to act rather than remain passive. This does not require expensive equipment or perfect conditions. 20 minutes of walking, stretching, climbing stairs, or practicing simple exercises can begin restoring vitality to a body that has grown stagnant. Over time, this daily movement becomes more than a physical habit. It becomes a declaration of responsibility toward your own life. Every drop of sweat becomes evidence that you are willing to work for the strength you desire. Slowly, the relationship between mind and body begins to change. Discipline in the body strengthens discipline in thought. Energy in the body fuels clarity in the mind. Confidence begins to grow not from words but from action, repeated day after day. The Stoics believed that a person who trains both mind and body becomes harder to shake in moments of difficulty. When challenges appear, they do not face them as someone fragile or exhausted. They face them as someone who has practiced effort, resilience, and endurance. Rebuilding the body is not about vanity or appearance. It is about constructing a foundation strong enough to support the life you want to live. And when that foundation grows stronger, something inside you begins to change as well. You stop seeing yourself as someone who avoids effort. You begin seeing yourself as someone who is capable of carrying weight, both physically and mentally. That shift becomes one of the most powerful forms of inner strength a person can develop. Once the body begins to regain strength through discipline, movement, and rest, the Stoics introduced another practice that many modern people rarely consider. They believed that comfort, when pursued without limits, slowly weakens the human spirit. A life built entirely around ease may feel pleasant for a moment, but over time it erodes resilience. When every decision is guided by the desire to avoid discomfort, even small challenges begin to feel overwhelming. This is why the Stoics practiced something they called voluntary discomfort. It was the deliberate choice to experience small hardships in order to strengthen the mind and body. At first, this idea may sound strange. Most people spend their lives trying to eliminate inconvenience and difficulty. Yet the Stoics understood a powerful psychological truth. A person who only knows comfort becomes fragile. But a person who regularly faces controlled difficulty becomes resilient. Seneca often spoke about this practice in his writings. Although he lived with wealth and influence, he would occasionally sleep on the floor, wear simple clothing, and eat the most basic food. He did this not because he lacked comfort, but because he wanted to remind himself that he could survive without it. By stepping outside luxury on purpose, he trained his mind to remain calm even when circumstances changed. Marcus Aurelius practiced a similar discipline during the long years he spent leading Rome through war and crisis. Despite living in a palace, he constantly reminded himself that comfort was temporary and that strength came from preparation, not indulgence. These practices were not acts of punishment. They were exercises in freedom. When you voluntarily face discomfort, you prove to yourself that your happiness does not depend on constant convenience. You discover that you are stronger than the habits that once controlled you. In modern life, voluntary discomfort can begin with very small decisions. Instead of reaching for the easiest option every time, you deliberately choose the path that requires effort. You take the stairs instead of the elevator. You run for 10 minutes even when your mind suggests skipping it. You choose water instead of sugar. You step into a cold shower and allow the shock to wake your senses. Each of these actions may appear minor, but their psychological effect is profound. Every time you face discomfort willingly, you send a clear message to your mind. I am capable of doing difficult things. This message slowly reshapes the relationship you have with challenge. Instead of seeing hardship as something to avoid, you begin to see it as something that strengthens you. The discomfort that once felt threatening begins to feel like training. Over time, this practice builds an invisible confidence that cannot be easily shaken. It is not loud or dramatic. It grows quietly through repeated proof that you can endure more than you once believed. Another important aspect of voluntary discomfort is the discipline of keeping promises to yourself. Many people struggle with confidence, not because they lack ability, but because they repeatedly break small commitments they make to themselves. They say they will wake up earlier, exercise regularly, or eat with awareness. Yet when the moment arrives, comfort persuades them to delay. Each broken promise weakens trust in their own character. Voluntary discomfort reverses this pattern. When you deliberately follow through on a difficult choice, you rebuild trust in yourself. The mind begins to understand that your words carry weight. Gradually, your identity begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who gives in to every impulse. You begin to see yourself as someone who acts according to principle, even when it feels inconvenient. This transformation is subtle, but powerful. It creates a form of self-respect that cannot be manufactured through positive thinking alone. It must be earned through action. The Stoics believed that adversity is one of the greatest teachers in life. However, they also understood that waiting for hardship to arrive is not the only way to prepare. By introducing controlled discomfort into daily life, you train yourself before true challenges appear. The body becomes accustomed to effort. The mind becomes familiar with resistance. When unexpected difficulties arise, they no longer feel like a shock to your system. They feel like another test you are capable of facing. Over time, the person who practices voluntary discomfort becomes calmer in moments that would overwhelm others. Where others see inconvenience, you see opportunity to grow stronger. Where others retreat, you step forward with steady resolve. This is the quiet power the Stoics wanted to cultivate. It is the strength that comes from knowing you have already faced difficulty by choice. Each cold shower, each early morning, each disciplined action becomes a small act of training for the larger challenges life inevitably brings. And with every act of chosen discomfort, you reinforce a deeper belief within yourself. You are not here to be ruled by comfort. You are here to grow stronger than it. After strengthening the mind and disciplining the body, there is one more part of the human being that cannot be ignored: the heart. Many people appear strong on the outside. They work hard, stay busy, and continue moving through life with determination. Yet deep inside, something feels numb. The excitement they once felt about life slowly fades. Moments that should feel meaningful pass by without emotion. They smile in conversations, but the connection feels distant. This quiet emptiness is often misunderstood. It is not weakness, and it is not a failure of character. It is usually the result of a heart that has learned to protect itself from pain. Over the years, most people experience disappointment, betrayal, regret, or loss. To survive these experiences, the mind builds walls. Those walls protect you from being hurt again. But they also block the ability to feel joy, love, and connection. Slowly, the heart becomes guarded. Life continues. But the emotional depth that once made it vibrant begins to fade. The Stoics never taught that strength meant suppressing emotion or becoming cold toward the world. In fact, they believed that a strong heart is one that remains open even after experiencing hardship. Marcus Aurelius once compared this kind of strength to a rock standing in the ocean while waves crash against it. The waves strike with force, yet the rock remains steady. The water eventually settles, but the rock never abandons its place. This image reveals an important truth. Resilience is not the absence of feeling. It is the ability to remain grounded without closing your heart to life itself. The process of rebuilding the heart begins with something that many people rarely allow themselves to do: sitting in silence. In a world filled with constant stimulation, silence can feel uncomfortable at first. Without distractions, the mind begins to surface thoughts and emotions that have been buried under busy routines. Yet, this quiet space is exactly where the heart begins to speak again. Sit somewhere without a phone, without music, without noise. Allow a few minutes of stillness and ask yourself 3 honest questions. If failure were impossible, how would I choose to live my life? What am I pretending not to care about, even though it matters deeply to me? And when no one is watching, who am I truly trying to be? These questions may create tension in your chest. They may reveal desires or fears you have avoided for years. That reaction is not something to run from. It is evidence that your heart is still alive beneath the layers of distraction and protection you built around it. Writing the answers down can make them clearer. Often, the words that emerge in silence reveal truths that daily noise keeps hidden. But rediscovering the voice of your heart also requires releasing the weight it has been carrying for too long. Anger, guilt, regret, resentment, and disappointment can accumulate quietly over the years. Each unresolved emotion becomes another burden the heart must carry. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus reminded his students that events themselves do not define our suffering. It is the meaning we attach to them that creates lasting pain. This does not mean ignoring what happened or pretending the past never existed. It means recognizing that holding on to those stories indefinitely only continues the suffering long after the moment has passed. One of the most powerful ways to release this weight is through the practice of forgiveness. Forgiveness is often misunderstood as approving of what someone did or pretending it was acceptable. In reality, forgiveness is an act of liberation. It is the decision to stop carrying a burden that is slowly draining your life. A simple practice can begin this process. For the next 30 days, write down one thing you choose to forgive. Some days it may involve another person who hurt you. Other days, it may involve forgiving yourself for mistakes you continue to replay in your mind. The purpose is not to erase memory, but to release the emotional grip those memories hold over you. Each time you write down a moment of forgiveness, you remove a small piece of the weight your heart has been carrying. Gradually, the heaviness begins to lift. The Stoics believed that a person who releases resentment gains a powerful form of freedom. You stop allowing past events to dictate the emotional tone of your present life. Your heart begins to feel lighter, more open, and more capable of connection again. Over time, something surprising happens. The walls you once built for protection start to dissolve. In their place grows a quiet strength that allows you to feel deeply without being overwhelmed. You learn that vulnerability and resilience can exist together. The heart does not need to hide from life in order to survive it. In fact, the heart grows stronger every time it chooses understanding instead of bitterness. This is the moment when emotional numbness begins to fade. Life regains color. Conversations regain sincerity. Moments regain meaning. By releasing the weight of the past, you create space for something new to enter your life. And that space allows the heart to rediscover its true purpose. Not merely to endure existence, but to experience life fully once again.